A key feature of Conforming Designer is requirements traceability. You embed the requirements for your system into the model, and when Conforming Designer generates a test, it also builds a complete requirements traceability matrix between the requirements and the generated test cases. The requirements for software can be classified in different ways, and for the requirements to qualify as good requirements to be included in a Conforming Designer model, certain conditions must hold. First of all, the requirements must be verifiable. Then out of these verifiable requirements, we only can take the external requirements into account. The reason for this is that we are modeling a black box and we only observe the black box through its external interfaces. So we wouldn't know anything about internal architectural requirements or coding standards. Then out of these external requirements, we are interested in the functional requirements that say things like, if this message comes in, then something must happen inside the box. Then these kinds of requirements in modeling for Conforming Designer we can put into the model, and then when the tests are generated, you also get the traceability matrix. The way this works in practice is that the language has a requirement statement. And using this requirement statement, you just mark those locations in the model where a certain requirement is fulfilled. So here is an example also from traffic lights, which basically says that in a certain point in the model where we have the if statement that if the input is red, then we are fulfilling the requirement lights where the red light is switched on. So it's always so that remember that the model is an implementation of the specification, and then in the model you have conditions, if statements, etc. that implement the requirements for the system. And then with the requirement statement you annotate this fact in a way that Conforming Designer understands, and then when the model is loaded, these requirement statements are extracted from the model for test generation and tracing. And then you will see the requirements in the coverage editor, and then you can choose from the coverage editor whether you want to include certain requirements in test generation or not. And then after test generation you will see them in the traceability matrix, and that then defines the mapping between the requirements and the generated test cases. And then these requirements can be cross-checked also against requirements that are maintained in a requirement management tool. So Conforming Designer can, for example, say that, hey, here in the requirement management tool you have requirement X, but you have not included in the model. It seems that your model is not complete. And that's how the requirements traceability works. So now let's then take our traffic lights model and add some requirements to the model to see how this thing works in practice.